Good morning. It's Friday. It's been a short week, but I'm still happy it's over. Now then, today I'm going to have a chat about something that, for once, does not come from one of my own games. Occasionally before, I have talked about the Tuesday game that I play in, and the chat that I want to have this morning comes from there. Although actually it's I'm using that as an example of something that happens quite a bit actually. And what I actually want to look at is when good is not good. Seems a bit contradictory, doesn't it? To give you a bit of background, we have a group of characters that are trying to do good. They are trying to help their world. They each have different backgrounds and different views on how they should do that. One of them is a dragon. And by that I mean he actually started out as a dragonborn but has become a dragon. Who believes that dragons are the right and proper rulers of the world. He believes that because of their age, their wisdom, their power, and everything else about them, they should be the ones in charge. And he believes that for the world to be a good world, that should be the case. Now, the others each have their own reasons why they don't think that's true, mostly because they're not dragons. But we encountered an old man who seemed very helpful. In retrospect, maybe too helpful. He was dressed as a wizard. He was a bit senile. Any of you who have read the Dragonlance books will probably recognize the character as I start describing him, because basically the DM was using a iteration of the Fizban Paladin character. Now, that's kind of where it all went wrong, because you see, my character, the dragon, revered Paladin. Paladin is the penultimate, he is the dragon god. Of course you're going to revere Paladin. And he was looking for signs of the dragons. Signs of Paladin would have been exactly what he wanted, what he was after. But he did not appear as Paladin. He appeared as a doddering old human male. And bloody bikes. Sorry about that. And he proceeded to help them, but very cryptically. He wouldn't tell them anything, really. He'd nudge them in a direction and then expect them to go figure everything out. And it got to the point that the group had figured out they knew he had to be more than he said he was. For one, he advertised himself as a human wizard, and yet he had been able to resurrect someone. That's kind of a red flag. He just seemed too involved, too knowledgeable for a senile old man. And finally they confronted him about it. They said, look, we want to know who you really are. We want to know. Now, in the storyline, there is an ancient dragon and an ancient giant that had once been on this world, who were revered as gods, but they were much less than Paladine, Bahamut. We kind of thought it was one of them in hiding. I don't think any of us really thought it was actually going to be Bahamut. I was convinced, as a player, that it was the creature known as the Last Dragon. And we had tried to hint at that before. Because part of the whole thing is that the Last Dragon and the Last Giant, because all of the dragons and giants left, but now they're back, it's a bit confusing, but the Last Dragon and the Last Giant, as they're known, had a bit of a Romeo and Juliet story, and ended up having a kid who was half dragon, half giant. And part of the storyline is revolving around that kid, who's now grown up. And me as a player and me as a character were convinced that this was the Last Dragon. Even as a player, I knew the DM was playing off the Fizban Paladine idea, but I didn't think he was playing it off that directly. And it comes to it, and we confront the doddering old man. We tell him we want the truth. He pulls the old, oh, well, I'm just an old man, and I'm not a dragon, and I'm this. And we push, because we know we're not a very trustworthy group. And basically, we weren't going to keep running errands for this old man unless we knew what was really going on. Now, we pushed, he refused, so my character said fine. He got up and he left. He walked away. He basically says, fine, if you're not going to trust us, I'm not working for you. I'm leaving. One of the other members of the group decided to push further and stayed and kept pushing. And that's when he finally lost his temper, and the old man exploded out into a colossal platinum dragon. Pissed. And basically told us that if we didn't trust him, then he wasn't going to help us anymore. Now, here's the thing. We would have trusted Bahamut. No doubt. At least my character would have. If Bahamut had said, travel to the Nine Hells and buy a summer home there, fine. He would have. My character would have done anything which Bahamut asked of him. We didn't trust a senile old man who was hiding something. But for some reason, Bahamut wanted us to trust this old senile man without knowing who the old senile man actually was. And that's where the problem came in, because my character, who would have trusted Bahamut implicitly and completely, in fact, I had actually already set up character designs for my character to multi-class into Paladin if he finally encountered Bahamut, because he would have converted from Sorcerer to Paladin. He already basically worshipped Bahamut. But in that moment, when my character realized that Bahamut had been deceiving him for the months that they had known this old man, and had never reciprocated the faith that Cindric put in the dragons, in Bahamut, because Bahamut is the dragons, realizing that Bahamut had turned him away, basically, had refused to show him the truth. He realized, at least in his own mind, that Bahamut's veneer of good was a lie. That he was a manipulator. He wanted to pull their strings, but he didn't want to tell them why. Now, stepping away from it, I, as a player and as a GM, understand the concept of deities working in mysterious ways. Got it. No problem. To me, the conflict comes at that point of realization. Now, going back to the Fizban character, towards the end of the Dragonlance story, they finally realized who Fizban was. And that exchange went very differently. Because when they went to Fizban and they finally said, "Are you really him?" Fizban didn't keep denying it over and over again. When they finally realized it, when they knew that's Paladine, Fizban smiled and he began to walk away. And as he walked away, the veneer of Fizban dropped away, and he became the Platinum Dragon. And he flew away. He didn't stand there and answer all their questions, but when they knew it was him, he confirmed it. He didn't continue the deception. And I think that's the difference here. When the old man continued to deceive after they knew that he was more than he seemed, that is what convinced my character that Bahamut was a deceiver. And it's actually completely altered the trajectory of the game, because my character has actually now gone down a route where he believes that if Bahamut, the god of dragons, who, remember, my character believes dragons are the top of the food chain, so the god of dragons must be the top of the god's food chain. So if Bahamut, if the Platinum Dragon is a liar, then how can any of the other gods be better? They must all be just as corrupt. And my character has gone down a completely and totally anti-god path, to the point that I've actually picked up a paladin variant from the middle finger of Vecna, which is basically a heretic. They are a paladin version of the Ur-Priest. They take power from the gods, but laugh in their face and and encourage others to see the God's lies for what they truly are. It's completely altered the trajectory of the character. One of the other members of the party, who actually did not worship Bahamut, but worshiped one of the giant deities, it's completely changed him as well. That was the moment when he finally... There had been a lot of other stuff going on as well there, but that was the moment that showed him to finally break away from his deity as well. He's become an Ur-priest. So, all of a sudden, the game has turned, and instead of seeing the outsiders as the biggest threat, there's some people basically trying to come and to take over the world. Well, so we've been told. We don't know if we believe that anymore. These outsiders coming to take over the world, instead of them being the threat, we're not as worried about them. I'm now concerned with these lying gods that are manipulating our lives. They're the villains now. So, in a bit of a roundabout example there, what I'm talking about is cases where good is not seen by your characters as good. In this case, my character still considers himself to be a good person. He is still trying to help people. He still wants the world to be a better place. He still wants people to be happier. But all of a sudden, his viewpoint is that they would be safer and happier if Bahamut was gone. Now, if Bahamut is a good deity, and my character is a good character, and yet they are opposed, does that make one of them evil? No, because neither of them is resorting to evil. They're both still doing good, and yet they're opposed. Just something to think about. I don't really have a magic bow to tie it up with as a solution, but think about, in your own games, situations where good is not good. Anyway, like, subscribe, have a great day. I'll see you next week.